Good morning, everybody. It's our first day of online learning. Today we're talking about how to construct your critical lens essay. This is what we'll be focused on for the rest of this week. Today and tomorrow we will be preparing. That means developing claims, finding evidence, beginning to think about our analysis, all that good stuff. Thursday and Friday we will actually be writing the essay. Okay, more details on that will come to you tomorrow and Thursday. A quick note first. Okay, a few things. I've posted the online learning guidelines in an announcement made yesterday in Google Classroom. Please pause this right now if you haven't read that and read it. It's going to be really important, so just pause this. Just hit the pause button. Just pause it. Just give it a little pause. Just pause. Press the pause button and go read that stuff. There will be a graded assessment on those guidelines later this week. Next, if you weren't around to present your Hamlet summative project on Friday or Thursday of last week, you need to set up a time with me to present your portion of that project between 2:30 and 4 p.m. tomorrow. So you need to email me or hit me up on Google Hangouts by then to schedule a time between 2:30 and 4 to take care of that. You'll have to do that via Google Meets. Finally, now that we're moving to online learning for at least the next couple of weeks, you need to advocate for yourself much more now. I'm not going to be in the classroom cruising around, touching base with everybody and making sure everything is copacetic. If something is going on, if you have a question or a concern, you have to reach out to me immediately, okay, via Hangout or email so we can figure out a solution to your problem. You have to speak up. That being said, let's get to that good critical lens stuff. Okay, what is a critical lens essay? The easiest way to describe it is simply that a student or author is tasked with analyzing a quote from a source and utilizing two literary sources, preferably books, to either support or oppose that quote. So basically, you're saying whether our texts Antigone and Hamlet support or oppose the idea within one of the three available quotes. Now, when you're generating your claim, this is what you really need to do. First, you need to interpret your quote. You've got the three different quotes. You've got to explain what it's saying. You've got to explain its message or theme. Basically, paraphrase it just using those related concepts. Remember that each of these different quotes has got related concepts you need to cover. The easiest way of putting this whole thing together is just embedding those concepts into your paraphrase of the quote itself. Then you want to determine how the quote that you've paraphrased, that you've interpreted, relates to the two texts. The easiest way of doing this is arguing that the two texts either support or oppose the ideas in your paraphrased quote. You can definitely do more sophisticated claims than that. That's absolutely fine. But the traditional way, the most accessible way, is to say whether or not Hamlet and Antigone support or oppose essentially the theme in your quote. Then you want to throw items 1 and 2 together in a 1 to 2 sentence arguable claim, or, if you want to be fancy with it, thesis. At the bottom here, you'll see our example. Both Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe and Love of Life by Jack London support the idea that all the problems can be solved if a person is well motivated and wise enough to direct all the efforts and chances towards one's goal. Next, evidence. You should have 2 to 3 pieces of evidence for each text. You don't want to have 4 pieces of evidence for Hamlet and 1 piece of evidence for Antigone. You need to think about balance here, and you need to have ample examples to support your interpretation of your quote. Your evidence should obviously have a clear connection to your thesis and claim, and the way that's easiest to make sure that it has a clear connection is that you should be able to instantly explain out loud verbally how and why it supports your thesis pretty soon after seeing it. You should be able to look at it and say, well, this supports my thesis because blah, 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 right off the bat. You shouldn't have to think about it. You shouldn't have to kind of mess around with it and try and force it into place. It should come into your brain right off the jump. Finally, and this is probably the most important point here, it is best to choose passages in pairs or groups based on shared literary elements or devices. Remember that your analysis is going to be primarily driven by discussion of literary elements and devices. So, if you're picking a passage from Antigone that uses characterization to support your thesis, you should also be picking a passage from Hamlet that does the same. Even better, if you could find 4 to 6 passages that all use characterization, that'll make your life a lot easier too. You could also do 2 passages that use characterization and 2 passages that use symbolism. You could use 2 passages that discuss figurative language and 2 passages that talk about conflict. You could talk about 4 passages or 6 passages that deal with conflict. Make sure you are grouping your literary elements and devices together. It makes the whole planning process much easier. Continuing with evidence, okay, you're going to need to use your copy of Hamlet. In order to get quotes from Hamlet, make sure you have the line and scene number. In terms of Antigone, I know it's been a while since we've thought about Antigone. So we've been super duper nice to you guys, and in the classroom post, there is this thing called the Antigone Scene Guide. Sorry, I pronounced that weird. Whoa. The Antigone Scene Guide, and what that is basically a description of each scene to help you refresh your memory. On that document is also a hyperlinked full text version of Antigone. Use those to find your direct evidence. Finally, as to the analysis, it should contain little to no summary. You're just kind of getting right into it, all right? Remember, you only have 80 minutes to write your entire piece. Give me a second here. I'm going to take a sip of coffee. Okay. You should also discuss primarily how the literary element or device in the passage supports your thesis. Okay, you've got to talk about how the literary element or device enhances the ideas in your passage and how those ideas then connect to your quote, your interpretation of that quote. So what does that mean? That means you're going to have to explain the effect of the element or device. Oh, I messed up. I got a typo there on the ideas in the passage. Some possible effects for those components are things like emphasizing important information, identifying exemplary or anti-exemplary behaviors, okay? Aiding comprehension through comparison or contrast, highlighting positive or negative trends or phenomenon in society, indicating the writer's attitudes about the subject, that's talking about tone, or allowing the reader to make connections to other ideas, experiences, events, or individuals. The structure. Okay. The structure is generally going to be a traditional 4 to 6 paragraph essay. You have your intro and claim, your bodies, and a conclusion that tidies everything up. Here's the thing, though. You need to fly, little birds. So we're going to have you generate your own outline for this. The type of structure you select will depend on the type of evidence you choose. Topic sentences are going to be really important. So if you've selected, for example, 2 pieces of evidence that deal with conflict, your topic sentence should be both Antigone and Hamlet utilize conflict to support the idea that blah, 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 blah. Use topic sentences. Next, use both texts within each paragraph is considered much more high level than just giving each text its own paragraph. It allows you to cover a wider range of ideas. So think about that and how you will do that in the future. That's pretty much it for us right now, guys. Remember to reach out with questions today. Use all the resources available to you in the classroom. And please, 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 please keep it together out there. Bye-bye.